Oh,
Wonderful.
yep. Okay. This is our Zoom. This is a or you
No,
mean our
it's
oh not you weren't asking me, you're asking Gail to give permission.
yeah. So we have the
Okay.
Zoom. I think so. It's yeah, and
Okay.
but we'll
Yeah.
share the link with you all afterwards. Yeah.
Sounds good. So two quick updates. So Hamdia is no longer in the program. As you all know, the work is very demanding, and she's not going to move forward in this part of the program, which is obviously really tightening up the grants and leads to funding. So we're still offered to help her on the side and mentor her and still support her with her grant writing. But yeah, that's just want to make sure everyone is aware of that when you move her from the chat. And then secondly, Quald mentioned this in last workshop in the chat. I'm not sure everyone noticed it, but he isn't here, and we're giving him space to listen to the recordings at the moment because he had a family member who was ambushed on a highway attack and is in critical condition, and obviously needs to focus on that. So just want to make sure you are aware of those two faces. We're not going to see Qual maybe for a couple sessions, but still be very much involved in Hamdia as well. And happy to talk to anyone offline separately from this about that. But without further ado, let's move forward with the session. Looking forward to it.
Awesome. Thank you so much for the updates, Jeff. And thank you once again for having us here. And to formally kind of kick things off, my name is Abhinav Kunal. You can call me Abhi. And I'm one of the co-founders and will be one of your facilitators for this course. I'm going to pass it to Gail to go into a quick introduction and maybe tell us a bit about Little Big Fund as well.
Hi, yes, I'm so happy to be here. The last experience with the Thari group was so invigorating and rigorous and really quite rewarding for me as a longtime educator and also as someone who takes just such joy in learning about emerging change makers and the way they want to change the world. And so it's an honor to be here. And Little Big Fund, you know, it started maybe 5-6 years ago. First, it was a curriculum at Watson University, which is now Watson Institute. Some of you may know about it. And Abhinav was one of the very first students there in the curriculum. And then he has now taken the lead to make Little Big Fund into what I think is a really wonderful service to look at fundraising, look at mission statement, look at mission development, and business models. I'm just really glad that we're all here. I know you've been all working really, really hard with Athari Group, working, writing, creating proposals, written documents. And our goal is not so much to change what you've been doing, but to just bring you a different look, just to perhaps reconfigure certain ways that you've been writing about your mission, not to replace what you've been doing, but to have as an alternate. You're going to experience in your life of asking for money, all different kinds of audiences, right? Different kinds of ways to raise money. And sometimes it's going to have to be short and sweet, and sometimes it's longer. So we're hoping that we can just add to the knowledge and the experience that you have already gained from Athari by taking this course with us to hone in on other ways to write your mission statement, other ways to talk about assets. And I'm just all glad you're here and you have connectivity, and I look forward to our conversation and our learning together. As it says here, it's a 4-week virtual course for you that have already launched and are sustaining your social ventures. And we're just hoping to fill some knowledge gaps and perhaps iterate and re-see some of what you've already been doing. Here's an overview of the sessions. I'm sure you all already know, but if you want to take a minute and write these down and just confirm in your calendar these dates for our 4 sessions, and you'll see in this list here that we are going to be offering office hours. And we have found in the past that when fellows and participants really take the time to meet with Abhi and I one-on-one, it just deepens any kind of questions that you may have. And we can maybe provide some resources, maybe we can answer some questions that didn't come up during our group meetings. So note also in your calendar these opportunities for office hours, which we'll get more into detail later. There'll be a sign-up sheet. And yeah, these are all the dates. And today is August 9th, August 19th, our session number 1. Overall, here's our structure. Today, in our first session, we're going to be talking about your mission statement, your story, and your assets. And then in the second session, we're going to be talking about your problem statement, how How do you write that? What is a problem statement? I'd love to hear from you what you've already done and what you know about that. In the third session, we're going to be honing in a little bit more on your budget and your request. Budgets are just so huge and so important, and just unpacking them over and over again can be really quite informative, I think. And then in the last session, we're going to talk about impact, which is, wow, that's even as big as budget, right? Impact. How do you measure impact? And again, communicating that and talking about it with other people from time to time really can help you to unpack what it is that you want to say in each of your proposals. So far, any questions about what we have on the road ahead of us? Yes. Nitende, is that correct?
That's correct, but you can also call me Baker if you find it. Yeah. So so what you're saying is basically we shall be reviewing the proposal that we've already been working on, right?
You'll be reviewing it, and that's a great question, because I'm not certain if Abby and I will be reviewing the 10 plus pages that you have at the beginning, but what we're going to be asking you to do is to be pulling from that and applying it to the curriculum that we have. But yes, I'm open to reviewing what you have already, whether it's in the parameters of our course, or if, let's say, during office hours or sometimes off course, you want to share a particular paragraph. My hope is that we're not confusing your process, but we're helping you to elaborate it or to hone in on something. Does that make sense? Does that answer your question, Baker?
Yes, that answers my question. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? Okay, I guess then we can move on.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Gail, for that introduction. And again, if you have questions throughout this course, we're very available through email. And so do reach out to us about specific questions throughout this program as well. But let's get started. So today's game plan is quite jam-packed. We're going to start by talking a little bit about your mission statement. We're then talk a little bit about storytelling and why that is important, have some conversations about that. At the kind of end of this, we're going to talk about assets and traction and how do you really capture your traction for your venture. And then at the very, very end of this, we're going to have some mentor texts for you to read. And so you're not going to just learn about writing a grant, you're also going to put on the hat of a funder and actually look at other grant proposals to understand what works well for other organizations, what has worked well for successful funding applications, and really kind of learn from that process as well. Each session is prepared very differently. So in addition to talking about specific proposals, we also share quite a few best practices around fundraising. So we'll talk about building relationships with funders. Oh, I think someone else was just trying to. Okay, perfect. So we'll talk about building relationships with funders. We'll talk about actually having a funder meeting, what that experience looks like. We're going to have some simulations for you. So it's a whole lot of really fun things that we're going to be doing. And if you're just joining, welcome once again. We're just getting started and excited to have you all join us for this course. Let me get started with, and we're also very much looking forward to the next few weeks as well. It's always fun to work with you all. So let's start with the first part of this course. We're going to start by talking about crafting a strong mission. And I want to actually ask a couple of you your definitions of the word mission statement. How do you define the word mission statement? And I'll call in some folks. It always becomes more engaging when I can, talk to people. So let's see, maybe Haley, I would love to hear from you. When you hear of the word mission statement, what do you think of?
I kind of think of what is the driving force. What is your ultimate goal that you're aiming to achieve with your organization, and a little bit of how you're going to get there. Yep, perfect. Exactly right. It's really, where are you trying to go? What is the goal that drives your organization, your team, yourselves as founders? That is exactly correct. Anyone else wants to jump in, share their thoughts on what a mission statement is?
Hi, Aditav. Sorry, my video is off. I am working on one and in my network. So statement is the work you plan achieve your vision.
So the work you plan to do to
Did
achieve your
anyone
vision.
hear me?
Yes, I think I captured. It was a bit broken, but I was writing down. So I think what I'm understanding is the work that you plan to do to achieve your vision. Is that what you were defining?
Okay, I'll just type in the chat box.
No worries, no worries.
Okay.
Hello, okay.
Go for it. I think Renat was first and then Kwame.
Okay, sure.
Okay, no worries. I think mission is how we want to achieve our vision. So we basically have a vision, but the way we go and reach there is our mission.
Love that. Perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing. I think Kwame, you were up next.
Yeah, I think mission is what you are set out to do. So you're looking at the thing, the purpose of which you are established or a business is, so the aim of what you want to do.
Love that. Perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing. Thanks everyone for sharing. Exactly. A lot of what you've captured is the sense of what a mission statement really is all about. So what I'd like for you to do is actually get on the chat. And I know not everyone has strong internet, so we'll use a lot of chat during these courses. And in the chat box, take a second and just one sentence, right? Really quickly put in your current mission statement. So just in the chat, I'm going to give you 2 minutes to do this. Put in your current mission statement in the chat box, and we'll wait till everyone's typed it in, and we'll continue with the next part. So 2 minutes to put in your chat your mission statement. Sorry, there's someone in my, apologies, there's someone in my apartment, so just give me 30 seconds. I need to. Okay, there's a apartment inspection that just happened. Okay, thank you everyone for typing it in. I'm seeing some really wonderful mission statements to improve access to ICT skills, offering practical computer training, offering immigrant support, connecting immigrants to their communities, providing safe, high quality, affordable community-based education, improving providing practical solutions for building partnerships. Oh my God, this is amazing. Gail, this is some amazing mission statements to start with, right? It's fantastic. Okay, I love it. Fantastic. Thanks for sharing. And I think we might be missing 1 or 2 people. So just put it in the chat as you can come up with it, and don't take too much time, just whatever comes into your mind. Now, at Little Big Fund, we use a framework for defining your mission statement. And this is what we call the 8-word mission statement. And it's actually inspired by Kevin Starr, who's quite well known in the nonprofit and social impact space. And he has this article, which we'll share with you today. It's called the 8-word mission statement. And it's an article written on the Stanford Social Innovation Review. And he talks about breaking down a mission statement, which oftentimes can be fairly complicated, fairly wordy, because we want to include a lot of different words to define what we are trying to do. And he says, break it down into just 8 simple words. And it should include a verb, it should include a target population, and it should include an outcome that you can measure, right? And this is a quote from this article. He says, a mission statement should be a verb, a target population, and an outcome that implies something to measure. And we want it in 8 words or less. And why 8 words, right? It's a very specific number. And the kind of philosophy around this is that it's big enough for you to include a couple of different things that you want to achieve, right? The target population that you want to serve, the outcome that you want to see. But it's short enough that it's going to make you choose and prioritize exactly where you want to go. I think a couple of folks talked a little bit about mission statement and the word mission being the place that you want to go, right? The how is going to come later, but this is a lot about the what. And to define the what, you have to be quite laser sharp focused. And oftentimes in funding proposals, it always starts with a mission statement that is slightly too broad, slightly too unsure of where they're trying to go. They're very clear on what they're doing, the solution you're providing, that's always very clear. And social entrepreneurs are great at that because you know exactly what you want to do in your community. But oftentimes, if you don't know where you're trying to go, it becomes very difficult for a funder to connect what you're doing today to what might be possible in the future. So we start with this activity as a way to kind of break that down. And so here's what we're going to actually do. I'm going to share a few examples first, and then I'm going to actually we're going to try to rework some of your mission statements. So these are examples of mission statements that have been written by past participants of this course. So here's one. We had a participant who wrote their initial mission to be to revolutionize cocoa production in Ghana and Africa, right? And the word revolutionize was one word that was very difficult to measure. When you're talking about, you know, an outcome to measure, it was actually very difficult to measure what revolutionize mean. And so a version of that mission statement eventually became, their 8-word version became innovate cocoa production in Ghana, right? Again, could be more specific, but definitely got a little bit better. Another example was train young people with limited employment opportunities in poultry and horticulture and promote young entrepreneurship. So that got switched to empower unemployed and out of school students. Fairly succinct, it tells you exactly who you're working with. It tells you exactly what the outcome of this work, this venture is going to be. Another example was to bring light and hope to others, to serve our community on giving away trees, building bridges. They were doing all these different activities. That was their initial mission statement. And again, they were so focused on what they're going to do. They're going to give out trees and they're going to build bridges. And we kind of converted that into this 8-word mission, which is to inspire my community to make a difference. A couple last ones. So to raise awareness about child abuse and empower children to protect themselves. That got switched to integrated education for children in India. And I think this is the last one, was to create pathways dedicated to providing equitable access to healthcare resources and services for underprivileged women in Zambia. Fairly long mission statement. That got switched to healthcare for all women in Zimbabwe. Now, the one thing we talk a lot about at Little Big Fund is the power of brevity. You'll notice that we'll come back to this quite often, not only in today's session, but in the future as well. And that's because we're living in a world where a 10, 15-page grant document can be an excellent document to share with a funder that's ready to fund you. But to get them inside the door, to get them interested in your venture, you're going to have a really powerful 1 to 2-page document, right? And so what we try to do at Little Big Fund is break down those kind of 10 to 12 pages and find a way to tell that story in as little as 3 to 5 pages, and even shorter if possible. And so this is the one kind of first activity that we like to use to get you thinking about it. But it's not just enough for me to share examples and the theory. I want us to kind of get into the practice of using kind of succinct and shorter ways to explain our work. So what I want to do is in just a second, I want you to kind of test this out yourself, try it on your mission statement. And a couple of quick final quotes from Kevin Starr that I will share with you in an article format is there are 2 things that makes the 8-word mission statement quite unique. The first thing is that they're always focused on concrete results, right? The words creating awareness or empowering someone or changing attitude, they're definitely kind of steps along the way to making impact, but it doesn't give you as much concrete results. Whereas the mission statement, the 8-word mission statement, focuses on concrete outcomes. So that's the first thing that makes it quite unique. The second thing is, and according to Kevin Starr, a good mission statement is about the what and not the how. So often, and you saw that in those examples that we just looked at, you see a lot of the how, right? I will build bridges, I will build schools, I will train teachers, and they're all amazing hows. But at the mission level, we're focused more on the what. What is it achieve? Here's kind of a last part of this quote where it says, for example, most social entrepreneurs want to dive immediately into their ideas about how change is going to happen. But we, and this is really the funders and other people that you want to recruit for your organization, we need to understand exactly what that change is. And if that like change is not very clear, it is very difficult to recruit people into your organization. So keep that in mind as we do this next activity as part of this session. So this is what we call a challenge, and we're gonna have multiple challenges over the next few weeks. The first challenge is say it in 8 words. And so in the chat, you all shared your mission statement. Some of them were 8 words, some of them were longer, some of them were maybe shorter. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna actually send you about 20 small words in the chat. I'm gonna put it in the chat in a minute. And then I'm gonna give you 5 minutes to kind of by yourself. You can stay here on Zoom, take a pen and paper if you have, or just your computer or your phone, and reframe your mission statement without using any of these words. These are words that we consider jargons, right? So your goal, your challenge is to not use any of these words. If it's there, take it out and make sure at the end of these 5 minutes, your mission statement is 8 words or less. Try to get to 8 or less. After that 5 minutes, we'll come back and we'll turn on your microphone if you can. If your internet is bad, you can put it in the chat, and you're gonna share your new mission statement with the rest of the class. Okay, so any questions on the instructions before I send you these beautiful words?
Yes, I do have a question.
Yes,
well, I'm just getting a bit confused between the vision and the mission in the way when we change it to 8 words. For example, when we said that healthcare for women, something like this. So, and somehow I felt like it's similar to vision. Yeah, when we are saying like healthcare for all women, Zimbabwe.
Yeah, that's a great question. And so in many ways, and there's a really great connection between a mission statement and a vision statement. And we don't necessarily talk a lot about vision statement in our like structure oftentimes, because we find that vision statements are usually time bound, right? So oftentimes your vision statement will have a specific kind of timeline for this. For example, right now we're hearing a lot of like 2030 vision statements where people will say, our vision is that by the end of 2030, all women in Zimbabwe will have received proper healthcare or something of that sort, right? And so that's usually a very specific vision that you're kind of rallying people to. And whereas the mission statement is kind of one of those things that it doesn't really end because you're trying to do it for the longer period. It doesn't have a specific time. And so the big difference that I oftentimes recommend folks to notice when they're looking at a mission and a vision is that vision has a concrete kind of goal that's time bound, whereas a mission statement is something that you want to do for the unforeseeable kind of future until you've obviously achieved it. And it allows you to expand. The mission statement always allows you to expand on what you're doing. And whereas, usually the vision statement, 2030, you finish the year, you're hoping you've kind of got some concrete results, and that's usually the end of that vision cycle. And then you obviously have more visions that you work towards. A mission is usually kind of that unlimited kind of work that you're doing for your organization. Yeah, Gail, if you want to jump in here as well.
Yeah, I want to jump in and say, like, for example, here, when I read to create pathways dedicated to providing equitable access to healthcare resources and services for underprivileged women, I run out of breath. That's like a lot for me to read, right? And so one practice for this particular example, for this particular person, was to say, well, how do I say that shorter? It's healthcare. It's healthcare for all women in Zimbabwe. She doesn't have to live with that all the time, but what we're asking you to do is to go back and look at what you've written and say, is that a long sentence? How could I, if I was put in the position to say it shorter, what words would I use? What other words might I use that are going to be sort of, I want to say, respectful to the audience and the reader? If you're giving your grant and your funding proposal to someone that you want money from, they've probably read lots and lots of proposals. And if you're particularly giving it to someone who funds healthcare, they're going to have heard a lot of the same words. And so sometimes having a practice of shortening and breveting, it's almost like if, let's say, you wear the same shoes every day as you walk to work, and then one day you say, I'm going to put on a different pair of sneakers. You're just going to feel a different bounce, right? The road's going to feel different to you as you walk the same path. So you can hold on to your mission statement and your vision and iterate them and move them around. And I think having a go at saying, what's the new pair of shoes that are going to give me a different bounce and a different way to look at what it is that I'm trying to do. A lot of the how can come later. It's just it's a lovely way, I think, of having a go at something that we know very well, if that makes sense. So yeah, there's another question before we move on from Maribel.
Hi, thank you. I just wanted to touch base on that question because I've had many times where I'm struggling with both, and it became clear as I was teaching it to youth in high school, just how the vision is sort of like that future state of where we would want our community to be, almost like I'm envisioning maybe in our case is a society that's telling stories that show immigrants with dignity and respect. And then the mission is sort of for me like the what am I doing about it to get there? So now I see it like a journey, almost like well, maybe not the how, but like what am I doing so that I can get to that world I envision or we envision.
Yeah, I think
that.
it's a great conversation. I like that. And when I look at your draft, Love for Immigrants is a social space for immigrant support. It aims to connect immigrants to their communities as respected. There might be a way to take some of that and turn it into one word, resources, right? Resources for, or just as a way to take and keep practicing what it is that your long-term goal is, right? What your change is. It's not easy. It's hard work. Hard work. But let's move on maybe and do this exercise that Avi was telling us about. And
Yeah, for sure.
See what happens.
Okay, so I'm gonna be sending some words on the chat. So if everyone's ready with their typing hands or their writing hands, whatever is easier for you. And on the chat, you're gonna see quite a few words. And again, your challenge is in the next 5 minutes, rewrite your mission statement to make it 8 words or less and avoid all of these words as possible. And so take 5 minutes. It's 33 past the hour. And so we're gonna come back at 38 and then everyone's gonna share. So I'm gonna just leave the Zoom here. You can turn off your camera if it's helpful. Take a walk if you need to, like write this down and then come back and we'll share at 38 past the hour.
Just I want to make sure that I understand it clearly. You will send us words that we will change them to 8 words.
Yes. Yeah, so I just put it on the chat. So if you look at your chat on the Zoom, you'll see a bunch of words that says words you cannot use. And so make sure that you rewrite your mission statement without using any of these words.
Okay.
So we're being really rigorous and strict right from the start. We're telling you to write 8 words and don't use all of these. So just see what happens.
Okay, one last minute before we start sharing. So finish writing up. Okay, so the next part of this session is what we call workshopping. This is where we'll take something that you've actually done, you've written, and we're going to workshop it together as a. We find this to be one of the most valuable parts of this learning process, because you're not going to only work on your own proposals and your own language. You're going to learn from other people. And so we'll be kind of inviting you to share what you've done and actually share with the rest of the class. So I'm going to invite a few folks that have shared their initial mission statement, and we're going to workshop it into this new version. Just give me a quick thumbs up if you can see my screen. I want to make sure that it's visible to everyone. Is everyone able to see my screen? Yeah, okay, cool. So let's start with Baker. Baker, if you would feel comfortable, this is the version that you had written in the chat when we started the session. And so I would love to invite you to tell us, what is your 8-word mission statement? Come off mute and tell us.
Yeah, so my new mission statement is empowering rural learners with practical computer skills.
Okay, so empowering new learners.
No, rural learners. Rural
learners.
With practical computer skills.
Okay. Gail, do you have any thoughts on this one from Baker?
Wow. I'm drawn to that second one, I mean, not only because it's shorter, but it just gives me a sense of, okay, there's going to be this group of rural learners and they're going to have some practical computer skills. I get it. Then as a reader, I can start to think, oh, maybe he's going to ask for keyboards. Oh, maybe he's going to ask for curriculum development. I can start to open up to what might be a conversation, right? As a funder. What was it like for you to do that?
So as you might have seen, I had drafted some other first ones up in the chat: promote ICT skills among teachers and learners from rural schools. So I took time trying to refine each and every statement that I'd sort of come up with, and I ended up with this one, which is, yeah, which I also find interesting.
Did it feel to you in the process that you were making a compromise of any sort in your, vision and mission, or did it feel that you were honing in? What did it feel for you as a founder to do this?
So I think the words that I've always put in my mission statement, just because I really want them to be there. I want people to know that I'm carrying laptops, that I'm having a mobile computer lab. But at the end of the day, this is what I want. And this is what I'm doing. I'm empowering rural learners, because my mission my older one is to improve access to ICT skills and knowledge, which is again practical computer skills, by offering so I've always wanted to put offering practical computer trainings. Yeah, so I feel like it's the same thing, yet the other one is actually way shorter. These are words that I've always wanted to see in my mission statement, because I believed that they easily communicate to the person that is reading it. And yet, even when I read these, someone should be able to tell that rural learners don't have access to computer facilities. If I have to do practical computer sessions, that means I need a computer, I need a keyboard, I need a mouse. So it's, yeah, it's a good exercise.
Yeah, it's good to have that fluidity. I agree. I think they do go together, and you may find situations when you'll use the prior one versus the second one, or maybe they'll become an elaborated introduction or something. It's a wonderful exercise, right? To cut back. What am I really doing? What am I really doing? And am I comfortable with that? And how do I tell people? Thank you for going first.
Yeah, no, I love it. Thanks, Gail, for the comments as well, and thanks, Baker, for being our first person to workshop it. I agree with you that in many ways I think you were already saying it, but now it's said in a way that you can put it on your website, you can put it on your proposal. First thing that someone reads is this, and it's inspiring, it's uplifting, and it makes me want to join your organization, which is amazing. So great job on that. I think we'll go with a couple more, see how much we can do with the time. Maribel, I think we have you as the next one. If you're happy to come off mute, we would love to hear your new version of this 8-word mission statement.
Sure. So I have like 5 or 6 versions of the same thing, but to share it quickly, the verb is share, the target population is immigrant community, and the outcome is art and storytelling. And I've just been rearranging those 3 in different ways, and it's driving me insane. But if I get rid of community, I have it in less than 8 words, which would be to share immigrant art and storytelling.
I love hearing about how you're like, Jenga-ing them all, right? Like having a little phrase here and another phrase there. That's fun, right? I mean, it should be fun, right? And not necessarily a burden to have to say everything in the first sentence, right? To share immigrant art and storytelling. Really interesting and fascinating. And I know that you have a lot of ideas about how to do that, but then, wow, art and storytelling and immigrants. Got it. I got the community. I got the product. And then again, as I was saying with Baker, for me as a reader, and you're going to have lots of different readers, I'm now curious to say, oh, tell me some more. Who's the community? You might want to consider, if you were going to use something like this, to make sure that your reader or your listener understands the where, right? Is it in Washington, D.C.? I think that's where you said you are, or is it in Afghanistan or Rwanda or Uganda or something, but
that's the tricky part.
I know. And how did it feel for you to go from the longer description to this shorter one as a practice?
It was a challenge. There are a lot of things about the first one that I like. I had like 5 different versions before the one I shared, but it also seems very clear as well. So it's nice to have the short version.
You can go back and forth. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, next up, I think, Haley, we have you for this one, if I'm correct. Sure. Yeah.
No, that's mine. So I think I'm ending up with holistically educating Liberia's youngest children.
Well, of course, I like the word holistically. That gives me an introduction to just a new word, right? But also then I can think about what are the different ways that education is going to occur. I like youngest children. I haven't heard that as a phrase very often. I've heard girls, right? I've heard boys. I've heard marginalized, right? Youngest children has a certain sense of dignity to it that I like hearing as someone who reads a lot of grants. How did it feel for you to do this exercise, to go from one to the other?
It was difficult because I feel like a lot of my words are important to the concept. And so picking the describers or the one describer that I felt was most important. And I think it's something that I might change, like you're saying, depending on my audience. I might use a different describer in front of educating, so that it fits for who the funder is or who the audience is that I'm speaking to.
Yeah, I think so. I agree. And words are so powerful, and there's this institutional language, right? There's this language that's used by the philanthropists and all the people that have the money. And then we think sometimes, well, I don't, what kind of gap do I have to bridge, right? As a proposal writer, as someone asking for money, do I have to use their words, or do I need to use the words that I know? And like, where do I want to feel, how do I want to feel about that? So again, just playing around with the words and the authenticity, and then being disruptive, be bold. If all of the mission statements that you read out there from your peers use the same language, then just scratch your head for a minute and say, that's not me. That's not me. I'm using youngest children because That's me. So again, this is an exercise that's not only about some brevity, but it's about creativity. It's about accessing that part in the back of your head that says, I don't want to do it just the way everybody else has done it, right? I want to know how to, but I want to also be open to other ways. So I hope that helps. It's a lovely exercise. And thank you everybody for the bravery and the rigor right from the start here to just put on a different hat, a different pair of shoes.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think with the time, I think we're not going to make it through everyone's wonderful mission statements, but this will be your assignment for next week. And so you will be working on this further, spend some time thinking about it. We like to think of these 4 weeks that we have as kind of like a lab. And so we're going to like bring these activities to you to start thinking about it. If you don't manage to do it in class, like if there isn't enough time, you're going to have more time to do it. So no worries if you didn't figure out your perfect mission statement already, because you will definitely have some time to do that as well. Now, let me just wrap up quickly on the mission statement so we can talk about some stories in a bit. But this is one of the resources that we're going to share. We actually have a really wide, it's a document filled with a really wide variety of resources. We're going to send some of these, like at the end of this class, I'm going to send you this article for sure. But a lot of these articles and reading materials, we're only going to share with you at the end of this class, at the end of these 4 weeks, just because we want you to obviously consume it all and learn it all. But sometimes it can also be quite overwhelming. So we will share some bite-sized materials over the next few weeks. And then at the very end, you're going to get a much wider resource list of readings on mission statement, readings on problem statement, things that can help you kind of write in the future as well. So any questions at this point regarding the mission statement? Any big questions you have at this point before we move on to the next part? And I just want to agree with oh, sorry, go for it. Yeah. Aisha,
Okay.
yes.
So the question I have is I like the whole 8 statement and how quite straightforward it is, and I can already think of places to use them, especially when introducing the organization and you're just doing like a 30 seconds or a 1 minute page. The question I have is the longer versions we have, do we like discard them, or are there times where they are very useful in their length?
Yeah, you know, it's so interesting. So I'm sure many of you are familiar with government grant writing processes versus like corporation or foundation or individual donor grant writing processes. And usually in government funding proposals, there are requirements of like number of words it should be, and it's oftentimes much larger. The longest grant ever was 76 pages long. It was terrible, terrible experience from a grant writing perspective, because you're spending a lot of time just putting down on paper words that you could probably say in a few words, but they're looking for those larger documents, right? And that's not true everywhere in the world, but I personally experienced that. And so what I would say is I wouldn't discard it, because you might be required to like write longer, further explain, expand on it, and you will have that audience. I think someone rightly just now shared about how they might have different audience, and based on the audience, they have to choose different words. And similarly, the length of your grant is going to be very, very different based on your audience. What I see most times, and I see that, you know, based on the foundations that I usually work with, or corporate kind of organizations that I often work with, or even crowdfunding campaigns that I've seen work well, is that in these audiences, they're oftentimes looking for short and succinct, and the sweet spot of like how many pages you should submit for them is really around the kind of range of 2 to 5 pages, right? You're not really submitting longer documents. And so when you're doing that, it really becomes challenging to write a mission statement that's very long, because you have very limited space. There's some competitions, if you're not familiar with them, things like Echoing Green, for example, where they don't even have a word limit, they have character limits, right? And so they're only giving you X number of characters, and you have to really kind of tell what you're doing in a very short space, sorry. And so for that purposes, I would definitely say like have your shorter version kind of ready to use depending on the audience. Yeah, I hope that answered. And I think Kual, you had a question there.
Yes, I have a question. Thank you very much. And it's still on the length of the mission statement. You say it depends on the audience. I totally agree with that.
Yeah, no, this is a great question. Thank you so much for asking. And I would say if you don't know what they're expecting, and if you're submitting a grant proposal into an email ID, right? You just have their email ID and you're submitting a proposal. I would often start with something that is extremely clearly written. It doesn't matter if it's 5 pages or 10 pages. It doesn't matter. It has to be extremely clearly written, and you have to clearly communicate why you're reaching out to them. However, before I even kind of suggest that, I would say the first step you should be doing, and this is kind of one of our big tips that we share for fundraising, is that it is often not recommended to submit a proposal if you do not know what the funder is expecting. And so before you even submit a proposal, and I have done that in my past fundraising experience, where I would just create one document, a standard document, and I would send it to 30 people from different foundations and organizations, and I would hope that someone would respond, right? And some of them would, but some of them don't, and usually most of them don't. And oftentimes what I realized is that what I was doing was I was hoping that my one document would relate to every single person, whereas oftentimes that is not the case. I wish that was the case, and I hope that in a future state, we're gonna have a world where fundraising becomes simplified so that if you write one proposal every year, that proposal can be seen by everyone and it's standardized. Whereas right now, the current status quo is that you need to really understand what a funder is looking for. And if it's a corporate philanthropist, for example, they're going to have specific metrics they want you to achieve. If it's a family foundation, they're going to have a different story that they want you to tell. And so really based on who you're working with, you want to first understand what their criteria is, and then only then submit a proposal. So as kind of two sided answer to your question, first step is definitely always reaching out to them. A lot of organizations have program staff that are basically responsible for responding to questions. And so you can always reach out to them with questions about, I would be very interested in submitting a proposal. What is it that you're looking for? What is the length that you're looking for? A lot of organizations make it available publicly, right, for you to see it on their website. And so do that kind of research, and then only submit the format that works better. So if they're looking for that 10 to 12 pages, submit that. If they're looking for 3 to 5 pages, submit that based on their requirements, is what I would say. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I was asking particularly recently, there is one of the organizations that asked us to write a proposal, but I did not have something like this in mind. So I'm now asking myself, do I have to do with the already existing long mission statement? Because I didn't ask them for what do they prefer. But thank you.
For sure. And yeah, if you're still kind of unsure on it, I would definitely just go for the short, succinct, also because time, right? We're living in a world where attention span is becoming really, really short for everyone. And so if you can send something that they can flip through on their phone in 5 minutes and be able to tell you, yes, no, maybe invite, that's always a good start. And again, the detailed document is important when they invite you for a proposal, because they're going to want to see the very specific impact numbers. They're going to want to see the very specific, detailed budget. So it is important for you to have a detailed document ready to go. But as the first thing that someone reads, and Gail can probably attest to this, is people that read a lot of grant proposals, I find that I want to first be introduced to something that's short, that's very clear. And then if I get interested, then I would love to have more conversations with you in the future. But yeah, it's a great question. And I think, Jay, to your point, it is a vision for the future fundraising that we hope we can achieve, where everyone has to just write one proposal every year, and then you can focus on doing the good work that you're so passionate about. But in the interest of time, let me move us on. Gail, I think the next part of this, we're going to move from talking about mission statement to talking about storytelling. And I think we have some wonderful observations to do for this part, right?
Sure. Wow, story that's a word that we hear a lot of, right? And sometimes it overused. Sometimes I think that the term storytelling is appropriated inappropriately, right? Like, how do we tell stories of other people when they're not our own? How does an organization promote its work through the story of one of its beneficiaries? What is it like? How many images do we use? How many words do we use? And story can be something that's very confessional. Story can be something that's very sort of passive. And we just want to, take some time to explore storytelling, not only from a concept, right? Like, what is storytelling for you? But just as an example of what some other people are doing to use story as a form of communicating their mission, communicating their purpose, communicating their work in this age of, videos and Instagrams. So to start off, we're going to look at an example from an organization called Intercambio Uniting Communities. And I've known this organization for 20 some years and known the founder, and they're an organization that's started off in Colorado, but now it's national, and they provide resources for adults for whom English is their second language. A lot of resources they provide, but essentially that's their mission statement, is providing resources for adults for whom English is a second language. On their website, they have a video that tells a story. And I'm not going to say anything more about that, but Avi's going to play it for you. And we can have the words of the speaker. The speaker is a woman named Wen Pei. And we're going to have closed captioning enabled so that if your audio isn't great, you can hear what she's saying. So this is an example of story on a thriving nonprofit's website that helps promote their mission.
And give me a thumbs up if you can hear the volume. So I'm gonna. And here we go.
I come from China, and my name is Wen Pei. And I moved to Colorado almost 3 years. When I first arrived in the United States, I feel everything for me is different. The teacher is really, really nice because they're very patient and very friendly. And if you have any question, you just ask them, they can reply to you very, very quickly. So it's a very nice place, very warm place, very wonderful place to help the students study English. Now I feel it's very different for my life because I can have more confidence to talk to people. And every month I can go with my husband, they do some tea tasting, so that let me feel so I make more friends, so that's let me feel very happy. I can share more my topic or conversation. I think I have a very big dream is I hope I can become like director, like film director, but that's just my dream. I don't know I can do it, but I think I can keep on trying to do that if after my English become more better. So I think maybe one day I can do that.
So, gosh, there's a lot that can be unpacked there. And there also on the website is her story in a written form if someone didn't have access or didn't have good connection to the video. And we can provide this to you. You can read it later. But I guess I wanted to just open this up, right, to hear from you. What are some things that you notice about this that are very positive and working and help you understand Intercambio? How did this storytelling land for you? I'd love to hear from some of you.
I'll jump in. Hi, I'm Janina. Sorry for being late today. Thanks for sharing the video. for me, what was really powerful was that she was not just describing the program and the project, but really you could hear the impact that it had on her life, like gave her confidence, gave her the ability to make friends, to go to the tea room and do all these different things. And at the same time opens up the room for her to dream about an even bigger future where she uses English as, as a language to work in.
Right. I agree. We saw not only the content and some details of the story, but it wasn't a and then. We were able to really get it right away that she needed to learn English and her confidence improved. And as a result of her confidence, she had new life changes. She felt she could activate, and then she had dreams that she could continue to feel confident to pursue. Yes. Let's see. Kual, did you have your, yeah.
Yes. I thought the story was powerful, and I started seeing, though she did not talk about the Cambio as an organization, it came out in a way that there was somebody behind the story that is making her very optimistic, and that is in the Cambio as an organization. Though she did not talk about it, yeah, I could see it at the background.
Yes, I agree. Good point. And I like too that, she didn't have perfect English. And so we wouldn't want her to have perfect English because she's in a program about improving her English, but they honored that and they let it, her authenticity came out. You saw that she was speaking about herself for herself. And I think that's a lovely thing. Yeah. And then in the written part, they put her words in quotes, right? They didn't try to change her language, and her words, they had a lovely picture of her. Haley, you were going to mention something, and I think I spoke to.
It was exactly what you were just saying. I love the truth to her words, and that they didn't feel the need to cut them and ask her to say them in proper grammatical sentences. I really loved that aspect of the video as well.
Right. So when you're thinking about telling your own story and you're trying to write it within this construct of an English language, right, for a funder who lives in whatever, Los Angeles or something, it's going to be a tricky balance, right? Because you're going to be asked to use jargon and words and story that are maybe more familiar to a particular reader, but you want to honor your voice. You want to honor the voice of the people that you're working with, and find a way to just keep both of those things going, right? The story doesn't have to be what you think other people need to hear fully. And then if you're telling stories of the people that you're working with, that's a powerful way, I think, to express need, to express, dreams, change. Yeah. Anything else to add, or did we need to, am I talking too long, Abhi?
No, this is wonderful. And, again, one thing that you're going to do, the video is an inspiration, and also a recommendation is trying to find different ways to tell your stories, right? I think a lot of proposals now are submitted via PDF, and you're submitting it digitally. That opens up your room for like the creativity that you can introduce to your grant writing. I don't know if many of you watched this introductory video that Gail and I sent, but we always find it helpful, rather than sending like a paragraph of who we are and what we do. We find it so helpful to send you that nice video. It's about 3 minutes, I think. And folks engage with that a lot better than if we send like our resume or CV, right? And so again, when you're telling the stories of your organization, if you only have a few pages, making a really great, powerful story video is oftentimes a great alternative. And because of technology, it's becoming more and more possible. So do recommend you to kind of consider different options for storytelling as well. And remember, everything that we're talking about, this is going to be part of your assignment for next week. So you're going to be working on your story. You're going to create some of these. We will give you feedback. So use this class as a way of, again, that lab idea, a way of testing different ideas and creativity as well. Gail, any other kind of thoughts on storytelling before we talk about assets?
Well, we'll have lots of conversation about this, and everyone's story is unique and important. And I guess just the last piece is that I find it refreshing in this example that Intercambio didn't need to tell me whether or not Wen-Pei suffered, right? She came to Colorado 3 years ago. That's all. That was respectful, and that was enough. And I think that another part of this conversation about telling story and telling our own story is, if you personally feel comfortable revealing certain things or not. I mean, it's very personal, right? But there's a lot of stories out there that sometimes feel as if they're a little, confessing perhaps, or putting themselves in a victim mode, or putting themselves in a, feel sorry for me mode. And I think I understand that, but I also just want us to entertain the idea that, that you're the person in charge of telling the story. And if you only want to say, I came to Colorado 3 years ago and I needed to learn a language, then that should be enough. I know it's arguable, but just wanted to put that out there as well.
Maribel, I think you had a hand up.
I just wanted to say I'm glad Gail mentioned that. When I was in high school, I had a really close relationship with my teacher who had a program. And every time she would take me to principal conferences, and every time she told my story, my grades from the beginning got lower and lower. And I had to have a conversation with her and tell her, all right, you're exaggerating my story. I also do have parents that care. So let's remember that the program was important, but I have a history of also good things in my life. But it was just like getting more and more dramatic. And I'm just like, no, this is not it.
Thank you so much for sharing that as well. Yeah, indeed. Indeed, something that I think a lot of social entrepreneurs struggle with is finding the balance between like creating a mentality among especially funders who then have an idea that it's just like the worst situation that you're working off of. Whereas oftentimes there's so much progress that's been done and you can't undo that by just making that false statement. So yeah, this is awesome. Okay, so considering the time, we're going to move on to the third part of what we're going to talk about today, which is assets. And again, if you're still like, oh, I want to see some more examples, you will see examples in the second half of this class. So we're running through some concepts, but we're going to come back to it right again. But the third part of this is talking about your assets. So we started by talking about your mission statement, talked a little bit about what storytelling can do and the power of storytelling, especially when it's authentically told in your proposals. And the third thing that we oftentimes miss a lot in a lot of funding proposal are your assets, right? Is exactly what I think Maribel was just talking about. There's so much great work that's already being done, right? We're not starting from scratch when we're starting new ventures and working in communities. They have done amazing work and you have done amazing work. So how do we identify those assets and tell those to show traction in the work that we're doing? And oftentimes when we talk about this in classes, participants will come up to us and say, but Abhi, I'm just getting started. I literally just started my organization. I haven't done much work. And oftentimes it seems like if you've started in year one, that first year you haven't done much, but there's so much more work you've done 10 years before you got to year one, right? And it's about kind of identifying all of these different things. And so first of all, what is an asset? Like, how do you even define this word? And the way we define this term is that we define asset as anything and everything that helps your organization exist and move forward. Again, if the mission statement is a very, very specific sentence, an asset is a very, very broad thing, right? It's everything and anything that has allowed for your organization to exist, and it allows for it to move forward. And it can be captured in different formats. So I'm going to share a few here. It can be the number of people that you've served already, raised till date, the skills that you bring, right? What kind of education you have, a few other things. If you have mentors and advisors, the fact that you're part of the Authority group is an amazing asset to share. The past pilots that you've done, if you've run a project and it failed, amazing. If it worked, feel free to share that as well. Past work experiences you've got, current work experiences you've got, your educational background, all of these are amazing, amazing assets. And we definitely recommend in your proposals to have a section where you can identify these assets and say, because of all of these assets that I bring to this work, I am likely to be more successful in doing this kind of work in the future. And that gives a kind of confidence that oftentimes funders are looking to have with their fundees, right? With their organizations. So whether you're for-profit or nonprofit, it's the initial fundraising relationship isn't just about having an amazing mission statement and having a very clear budget. It's also about that human element, right? It's about that confidence that one person has over the other, where they say, oh, I have the confidence that this person would deliver. If I invest $100 today, they will deliver on this $100. Don't have to be successful, but you will deliver. You will make the most of it, right? And so that's why we definitely recommend you to have a section called assets. And oftentimes it's so difficult to talk about oneself, right? If I ask you, tell me about what assets you have, you're going to be like, oh no, I don't really know. I'm a bit nervous about this. And so we do a quick activity, and it's going to be really, really quick. It's a 3-minute activity. We're going to send you to breakout rooms with one other person. And what you're going to do is you're going to help your partner identify as many assets as possible that they have. And so roughly about a minute and a half for each participant to go. So when you get to the breakout room, give your partner about a minute to list as many assets, write them down. And it's important you write them down because you're going to come back and share it. And then switch, and then make sure you can then share your assets to your partner and they can write it down. And then we're going to come back here and we're going to hear assets that you all have to share from each other. And again, it can include everything from money you've raised to people you've served to educational background you have to any other experience that you have. Okay.
And I would also encourage you to just, think out of the box and throw anything out there. Like if you want to say, I make a great cup of coffee, just throw that out there, because in the process of celebrating what we have to sometimes think about the things that we're not easily sharing, right? Within this construct of being someone asking for money. So have fun with it. Don't have to list all of them, but have fun with celebrating yourselves.
Perfect. Awesome. And so right now we're going to have, I think, 5 rooms of 2 people. And then one room might have one more person adding in. And yeah, take about 3 minutes. I'll send you a 60-second warning. It's a quick activity, but we want you to kind of get moving. And we'll come back here and you'll share your assets for your partners when you come back from the breakout room. See you all in just a second. And there we go. Okay, so we've got 60 seconds. Tell me some of your assets.
So as it was in your presentation, as earlier mentioned, one of the greatest assets that I have is the trust that we have built with the community that I work with for the last 8 years.
Mm-hmm. Oh wow, that's amazing.
My the contextual understanding and the people that I've attracted to Greece in the course and volunteering currently.
Lovely. Okay. Wonderful.
Yeah,
I will.
In terms of my education as well, I have attended a lot of training. That's one of the aspects.
Perfect. Wonderful. Thank you for sharing. I think we have 7 more seconds. So Kual's partner wasn't able to speak. It seems like Stark, someone with the name Stark, their microphone isn't working. And so we ended up talking and sharing, but welcome back. I know that was a really, really quick round. And of course you have probably a lot more assets than we gave you time for, but this is just kind of getting you started. So let's see, I'm gonna have maybe a couple of folks. So Jay, would you like to share? So I think you were paired with Kwame. Tell us a bit about some of the assets that Kwame brings into this work.
Yeah, hopefully my connection will hold. Kwame has already secured a loan for his project, which is super impressive, and also got a container together where the whole thing should take place. He also highlighted, which I really love, the knowledge and information that the community that he works with has already, that he's building on, and also his personal background in management, fashion and economics.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. And Kwame, if you want to share some of Jay's assets.
Yes, so I had an interesting conversation with Jay. Jay, I think we share almost everything in common. We also be able to secure the loan and the land. She has a community knowledge. They are in about 10 countries, and so we shared most of the things together. She has also knowledge about the project, and so that really goes a long way to help her project. So those are the things we had in common there.
This is amazing. Yeah, I mean, look at how much wonderful resources you bring, right? And I think I don't know you all, we just met, and I'm already like, I want to support your project in whatever way possible, right? So imagine a funder who's like sitting on some dark room and reading this grant, hearing these things that you've already done, 10 years of experience here, loan secured there. Make sure this is front and center in your proposal, right? This is not something you should be hiding at the very last page or the last section of like, this should be in the front, like talk about it and be proud of it. Let's see, maybe we can do one more. If anyone wants to volunteer from like one of the rooms, if not, I'll just call in. Does anyone want to go?
Let's can. See.
Go for it,
Baker, yeah? I'm volunteering us. Is that okay, Baker?
Yeah, that's very
okay. Yeah. I figured. So Baker talked a lot about his experience in learning how schools operate, going to different rural schools, and then we connected that back to his experience being educated in a rural school. So he has that background knowledge personally as well as professionally. He has reached 381 people, which is absolutely amazing. And already written a grant proposal that got accepted by the US Embassy and contributed to the major part of his funding, which is so cool. And yeah, we could have kept going, but those are the big ones.
Love it. Baker, if you want to share some of Haley's.
So Haley has been a teacher, she has been a trainer, she has been a principal, she has worked with schools, so she has all that experience. And then also the other assets that she also has is the family members, very hopeful people. And then she has been in the US the last 5 weeks. So she has been able to really raise some good money that will enable her run some of the work, some of the activities in our organization. Yeah. So again, family and friends are very key assets. Yeah.
Gail, I saw you were going to go.
I was just going to jump in. It's always lovely at this point to see the way, conversation helps to loosen us up a little bit to talk about ourselves. And I would encourage you all, when you have time, to pick a friend, pick a parent, pick a kid, pick a neighbor, and say, I'm going to tell you all about myself, and then you tell me back how great I am. And then when you hear someone else reiterate what you know inside, it just gives a new sense of freshness to it, maybe some new words. I think that you can use one another in that way. Remind me of, like, what do I do? What am I good at? And that's always a fun exercise that we're seeing played out right now.
Love it. Yeah, and I think social entrepreneurs are doing such great work, and oftentimes not giving ourselves enough pat in the back. So also a side part of this activity is also hope you recognize how amazing you all are as well. We're going to take a 2-minute break before we jump into the last part of the session. So take 2 minutes, stretch, and then we're going to come back at 26 past the hour, and we'll get started with the last half of this. So see you back here in 2 minutes.
Thank you, Abby. Thanks, everybody.
Okay, I think seeing some folks coming back, and if you're just joining, we're gonna get started with a quick activity. So Gail, I think we have about 5 minutes for this, so we'll do a few of the slides, but I'm gonna pass to Gail to do a really fun activity that connects with everything that we've been talking so far. So Gail, passing it to you.
Okay. Yeah, brevity, creativity, thinking outside
Gail,
the box.
I'm not seeing you. I think maybe your
Here I
camera.
am. Sorry.
No.
Even here, I just put myself on, tab. Okay, so having fun, being creative, thinking outside the box, brevity, all of these are themes, as you can probably pick up, of what we like to do in our curriculum. And this next activity is kind of out there a little bit in terms of where you might be in developing your mission statement and story and grant writing, but it's fun. And it could also, I think, add to the way that you unpack, right, your messaging, where you unpack what you want people to know about you. And so do you want to go to the next slide? Oops, where'd you go here?
Oh, yeah, here I am.
Okay.
Sure. So these are some, like, okay, there we go.
Okay, so we're going to look at logos, right? And I'm going to ask some of you to just jump in and tell me if you know what this logo is for. And why do we want to look at logos? Because they're everywhere, right? Because they're a part of the messaging, right? Now, who knows what this logo is for? Shout it out.
Nike.
For Nike, right? Okay. Now, do we know that it's for Nike because it's been around? Yep. Does it have just a whole bunch of presence? Yes. But then when you think about it, and Nike, and like, just ask yourself, does that message of that swish or whatever they call it, right? It has become almost like historical, right? And it means something. It means, to me, it means action. It means, boom, make my mark. Here I go, taking off. So sometimes when we doodle, right, or we draw what we think we're doing, right, or we look at what are some of the images and symbols out there that are a part of our work, maybe that becomes not only a logo, but perhaps it becomes something that we can describe, that is there beneath the surface, that communicates and that we might put into words what it is that we're doing. Let's look at another one. Who knows what this one is for? Anybody? If you're in Kenya or Uganda, this is the logo for a rock band, well, an ensemble of singers called Sauti Sol. And they're in Uganda. And the way that I understand it is that the rooster is part of an emblem of Uganda. And then you see the earphones or the headphones over it, right? So it's interesting, right? And it does help me once I know what they do and I see this and I know where they are. And then it says something to me about what they prioritize. They prioritize their community, they prioritize their heritage, and they prioritize sound and music. So maybe just in the process of unpacking symbols, they can come up with language that helps them describe what they do. What's another one? Who knows what this one is? Everybody knows what this one is, right?
Wikipedia.
Wikipedia. Okay, Renat, tell me, like, what do you think about this logo? What does it say to you about Wikipedia, if anything?
Well, because of like there's lots of different languages they provide their information in, and it's all over the world. So this is what came up to my mind at first.
Yeah, they help fill the puzzle. They help complete, you know, something that's missing, and they honor their multiculturalism. You know, so maybe when you're thinking about your work, you've got various symbols together that might form, you know, part of your proposal. Maybe there's something in there visually that shows what you do. Okay, what's the next one? Anyone know what this one is?
Honda.
Toyota.
Toyota. That's Toyota, right? I don't see a T. I mean, I kind of see a T and an O, but again, this idea that we all just, yep, that's Toyota. How did they get there, right? How does Toyota get to the place where we see their symbol, and how did they inform their staff, you know, to write this? Just a fun, you know, exploration. Is there another one, Avi? Who knows what this one is?
Uganda Airlines.
Yeah, ding, 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 ding. Uganda Airlines. And this is a crane, isn't it? Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And what else can you say about it?
It's Ugandan. I don't know what else I should say.
Right. Well, I mean, are the colors important or
yeah, the colors? Yes, the colors.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. And is there another one? Oh, geez. Okay. We know this one. McDonald's, right? And that started long ago because their building had these arches, right? They were built with the arches, and then they've turned it into the M. I don't know. It's you know, I don't really eat a lot of McDonald's, but it's embedded, right? It's there, and it relates to their history, right? And then their name. So And a logo, right? A logo can grab attention. It can make a strong impression. It can be the foundation of your brand and your identity and your vision. And it can separate you from others, from the competition. Now, is it a course in which we're going to do graphic design? No, not really. But is it a course that's going to ask you to access, as I said earlier, these parts of your knowledge that are maybe not tapped as often when you're on the ground working all the time on your mission and your life and your work and your family? So have some fun and think through, if you were going to sketch out and draw what your work is, what would you learn from that? Or would you ask some of the people that you work with? What could you learn from that? And how can that help you to communicate your mission, tell your story, get attention, engage people, maybe lead towards your publicity, your marketing materials? Yeah. Any feedback on any of this? Well,
one of the things.
Go ahead.
Sure. No, thank you, Gail. And one of the things that I love, and again, this is just like a warm-up activity that we want to do as we lead to the next part, but this is also something that we're going to come back to, of how do you tell sometimes fairly complicated stories of things that you're trying to do in very simple ways, right? So as Gail said, we're not going to do it ourselves a lot, but do invite you to try it, and we'll be sending you a little optional assignment for this week. So if anyone wants to take a crack at sharing their logos with the rest of the group next week, you'll have an opportunity to definitely get feedback from us as well. Thank you, Gail, for leading this wonderful, lovely activity. And let's move on to the last part of the session. So this part of the session is switching gears. So we're going from being a fundee, someone that's writing proposals and asking for money, to the funder. And so you're going to change your hats if you have one. And you're going to be the funder. And so this is a simple activity that we're going to try for about the last 20 minutes that we have together. So you have been invited to join a proposal review committee for a funding organization. So this is a simulation where you're invited to join a committee, and you're going to have about 10 minutes to read the first part of a grant that was submitted to your team. You're not going to read the whole document, so it's not going to be complete. You're only going to read one part of it today, about 10 minutes to read it. And then you're going to come back and everyone's going to have some time to share their kind of feedback on that proposal. And what you're going to tell us at the end of it is whether we should continue funding or reading this proposal or not. So you're going to be making that decision on behalf of the committee, right, as part of the committee. So this is a fairly interesting kind of switch from what we've been doing so far, which has been learning a lot of that theory. Now you're going to put that theory into action and say, does this mission make sense? Does this story make sense? Does this asset make sense? So you're going to do that reading in just a second. There are two ways to do the reading. So the first way is that I will put it on my screen, and you'll be able to basically just read it as I scroll it down. The second option, which is a fairly simple option too, and this is for anyone that has a computer, is that I'm going to put the link on the chat in just a second. And so if you click on this link, it's going to open a Google document. It's a shared Google document, so everyone can read it at the same time. And you can basically follow along there as well. So for anyone that's using their phone and iPad, I'll put it on my screen. And for anyone else that can read it themselves, feel free to go on that Google Doc link. It's on the chat. And for everyone else, I'm going to share my screen in just a second. And we're going to read it together. It's fairly short. It's not too long. And we'll come back in about 10 minutes at 46 past the hour and read it together. Oh, and then discuss together. So let me go ahead and put this up on screen. Gail, can you give me a thumbs up if you can see this? Perfect. Okay, so I'll be very, very slow in reading. And if anyone doesn't have it on their computer, you can read it here. couple of minutes more. So. Take one final minute to wrap up and think about it from a funder's perspective. Critically, would you invite them for more conversation? Would you not? Okay. Give me a quick thumbs up visually if you're finished reading. Doing good. Okay. Okay. Let's jump in. So I think there are a few questions that we wanted to discuss. So Gil, I'll invite you to ask these prompts and we can discuss these questions together.
Okay. So imagine that you're on a committee that's pre-reading grants that you're going to then decide, do they stay in the pile or do they go over there to the side? Are they going to be, worth spending more time with? Because frankly, it does happen, right? Funders read proposals and they can decide within the first couple of pages if they're going to continue. One of the easiest decisions that the reader can make is to stop reading, unfortunately. So pretending that you're funders, based on what you read so far, the first few pages of this proposal from responder, which let's say didn't come, that there was an introduction. Let's say that the funder was ready for it, but would you continue? Would you say to me and Avi, yeah, this is worth your time. It's super interesting. I want you to continue reading. So tell me, yeah, what do you think? Baker, I see your hand raised. What do you suggest?
Yeah, so for me, I read in detail. It took me a lot of time to read and understand exactly where the problem is. I feel like starting with a story is good, but the words are too many. So because these people have a lot of things to read, maybe she wanted to start exactly with what the problem is, what is the solution, and then maybe the stories can come in later if they need to hear them. But I feel like there were so many irrelevant words, so many stories that they wouldn't allow them to favorably compete for any funding available. I mean, there were so many words. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I would echo that. It took a little while to get to the specifics that they need to have the responders, the fire people, to get there faster. Yeah, what else? People have similar responses or different?
Comment one. Hello, everyone.
I think the internet connection was a little bit, yeah. We couldn't hear you very well.
Sorry for
okay.
Drop it in for me. My comment. My comment will be on this one as a funder on the funder side. it is too long. For example, the mission is more 5 lines.
Hey, Justine, unfortunately, to drop it in the chat. We're still not able to hear you. So yeah, if you can drop your response in the chat, we'll go to the next person.
Writers response time by making a rooftop sign for them that makes them visible on the way to fast stations. So
Okay.
It was hard to hear you. So if you could please write in the chat what your comments were, and then we can move on and take someone next, please. Thank you. Janina, would you like to share?
Yeah, thanks so much. So I definitely agree with what Bekar said in the beginning. I really actually like the idea. It makes a lot of sense once you get like to the second page. What I did like was his personal story about, you know, how his father was a firefighter, how he started, how he really connected to his personal mission, and knowing he really understands the issue well. But I think like just getting that first page, probably I wouldn't have continued reading if I were to get a lot of proposals. So I was thinking, I'm a very visual person, so I would have like put in a photo right away of what they're wanting to do, because, you know, then you see it at a glance. And then just to echo Baker, like, what is the problem in just a couple of words? What is the solution? So like start with this really, really visually and really clear, and then go into probably this personal story, and yeah, go from there. But I think, I mean, the idea is good, but it's a pity because likely you wouldn't continue reading after this first bit.
Yeah, good point. The visuals could help a lot with like, here's the sign, or yeah, great ideas. Haley, did you want to go next?
Sure. So I was thinking about, they kind of shot themselves in the foot in the assets for me when they were like, oh, the government hasn't approved what's going to be best for the project. And so like to me, it was like, oh, this sounds great. This sounds great. And it's like, oh, but we're not allowed to do it. So that was the part that to me was like, I would just leave that out and say like, the sign is working. We're going to use that and evolve it over time. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, it's good to have all those assets and have them sort of on the back burner, but to be deliberate in what you choose to share in a particular proposal. Yeah, Aisha, what's your comment?
Hi, can you hear me clearly?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I think I like the idea. I sort of could follow the need, you know, and see the gap and the gap they are trying to fill. But I also feel like there was quite a bit of some irrelevant story. For example, in the introduction, talking about the country, talking about they don't have money, they don't have this, they don't have that, and then talking about how they are volunteers in their community. So it was just a bit of okay, so what's going on? Like the painting of the country as having lacking so much, it just gave me a oh my god, what's going on kind of thing. And then for you to just narrow it down to firefighter, so I'm like, okay, what's the connection between all you've said? And you know, so that was always a bit off for me. And also in terms of talking about the assets, I think it would help if it was a bit more direct and clear. So for example, they said they have CEOs wanting to be on their advisory board. I know there are CEOs, there are useful ones, and there are actually useless CEOs. CEO is just a title. Doesn't mean they are actually relevant people per se. Some CEOs are not assets, they are liabilities. So unless you tell me like, okay, the CEO of ABC company who has a track record of this and this and that, and I'm like, oh, okay, wow, that's solid, you know. So I felt like the asset was not very compelling enough, but I like the idea.
Yeah, another good point. Be careful if you're going to, make a promise, let's say, even if it's an indirect promise, right? That some CEOs are willing to be, but, be careful, right? With some of that, because a reader will, like Aisha, pick up on it. And, I just wanted to say too, that depending upon the audience, you may be writing a grant to, as Avi was saying, a government organization that wants to know everything. And then there may be some who they don't need it. And so it's important to understand your audience and, and respect their time, right? And their inclinations and their context. Really, really good feedback. It's good to read somebody else's work and then find ways that you can learn from it. Abby, I don't want to lose track of time here because I see other hands are raised, but that you wanted to review assignments, correct?
Yes, I think we still have we can do a couple more. I think there was another prompt. There was another prompt on this, which was like, what is clear and what is compelling? Maybe we can have folks talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. Yeah, Jay, what did you find very compelling about this example?
Yeah, really, I love the story, as has been said, and that was really like the need was very clear. The product is actually very clear, but it wasn't like laid out super clearly. And then so there's like there's an impressive story, there's a useful product, and there's quite a good list of assets already as well for something so young. So actually those things are really strong. It's just that they're not brought out super strongly. And I wanted to say there's a lot of repetition of words. So there's help a lot. Some of the words that you listed at the beginning to never use, they're just in there quite a lot. So wanted to know that.
Right. And sometimes I've seen grant proposals that if they have the extra information they want to share about assets or about their story or about the government, issues, sometimes they provide that as an addendum, right? Or as an attachment so that the reader can then make a choice when she or he or they are reading to say, oh, I'm going to click on and go read page 5 that has an elaboration. So you can still have that information available, but you can choose to have it as an attachment, let's say, if you want to balance the time measurement and the data. Oh, okay. All right, Abby, are there other comments?
I think I saw Aisha's hand up again.
No, it's the old one. Let me just bring it back.
Oh, Maribel, did you?
Yes.
Want to jump in? Yeah.
I was confused at first, like most people, with the introduction paragraph. I do, however, like that the reader, I kind of get what the writer was trying to do. They were trying to explain that even though the situation was very difficult, like, to have a good sense of the issue that the country's facing, which is really good to know, that the community is very strong and resilient. But that can be said, and that's something I'm also learning, that can be said in less words, and describing the larger societal issue can be placed in a different spot. It doesn't have to be up front. And so that, I will say, was interesting to once I knew what they did, then I went back and forth and I say, wow, like, this is a very strong community, and that's important to highlight.
Yeah, good point. And that could be one, recommendation that says, okay, let's just keep reading. Maybe this is someone who is new at writing grants, but they seem to have this connection to the volunteers and the community. Let's find out more. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, we have a few more minutes. Thank you, Gail, for that. And before we jump into this last part, I want to do a quick waterfall. So waterfall is very simple. You just type something on the chat and you put it in the enter. And so if you are in the committee, so for example, we're part of this foundation and you're in the committee, just with a quick yes or no, would you continue reading the next part of this grant, or no, not going to read anymore, they're uninvited? So I'll give you 5 seconds to decide, put it in the chat. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, let's see. So we've got no's, a couple of yeses. Oh, quite a few yeses. Okay, no, okay. We actually, I haven't counted, but it seems like we might be 5 and 5 is what it is. And Renat, I couldn't read that specific character there, but I'm not sure if you were a yes.
It's no, but yeah.
Oh, it's a no. Okay, so I think there might be one more no than yeses. So it's basically like a tiebreaker, but that's okay. We will read the second part next week, and you'll get it. You'll actually get it ahead of time, so you can actually come to the class with your decision, and you'll get to debate and argue and discuss this as well. But thank you everyone, and Gail, thanks for coming. Building this proposal into it, and obviously coming up with these wonderful prompts for us to discuss. We've got about 5 minutes left in this session, and obviously want to have some time for you to ask general questions before we wrap up. But here are some assignments. And so the first two are compulsory. It's part of the program. Last one is completely optional, an opportunity for you. So the first one will be an article that we're going to send out on the mission statement that is actually connected to the 8-word activity that we did. It is an article written by Kevin Starr. So we recommend you to take some minutes to read it. It only takes about 7 minutes to read. So do take some time to do that before next session. The second piece is to write your story, mission, and assets. And we hope it can be less than 1 page. As you saw with this example that we just read, sometimes it's a bit longer. And again, goal is to make it shorter and succinct. So we're going to challenge you to try to keep it less than 1 page. You will be writing it, you can do it in Google document or Word or whichever format is easier. And then you'll be emailing that to me right before the next session. And the reason why you're going to do that is because we're going to workshop your grants. And so it's not just you're going to submit it and Gail and I are going to read it in some corner and then give you feedback. We're actually going to discuss it as a group. And the whole kind of goal of this course is to create an environment where we can learn from each other, right? So please do submit it before 5 p.m. This is EST. All the times that we're going to share will be in Eastern time. And so 5 p.m. next week on the 25th, please submit those assignments. And then during the class, we'll look at it and read it. To submit your assignments, you're going to email it to abhinav@littlebig.fund. That is my email. You all should have already received an email from me. And so just send it to that email address and we'll prepare it for the session. And the final, and again, really optional assignment is to draw your logo or bring your logo to class. You can either email it to me before next session, and Gail and I are going to look at a couple of them at the beginning of the session next week. And this is an opportunity if you've always wanted feedback from 12, 13 really smart people on your logo, this will be a great opportunity for you. Again, we're not spending a lot of time during the session, but we will make about 5 minutes in the beginning of next session. So email it to me with your assignments and we'll put it in there in the presentation for next week. Any questions on assignments before we open up for some final questions generally before we wrap up for the course? Okay, it's all clear. We're gonna thank you all for being amazing participants. I can speak on behalf of, I think Gail and myself, we've really enjoyed working with you all. In this first session, this is only the beginning. We're gonna be doing a lot more work together over the next few weeks and obviously in the future as well. And thank you again for being part of this boot camp. We hope you're excited to continue this learning journey, and we look forward to seeing you next Friday at the same time on this Zoom link. Gail, any final words before we wrap up the session?
No, just kind of like, yeehaw, we got on the horse. We all kind of get it. And it was fun. So thank you for taking that ride with us. It was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it very much.
Thank you so much. And Jeff, if you have any announcements before we wrap up. Well,
nope, all good. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. Have a lovely weekend, and we'll see you next week. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.